Hey friend, before we dive into today's podcast episode, I want to let you know that today doors are open to Elevate University, which is the #1 online membership for new entrepreneurs like you to help you navigate the emotional and mental journey of building a business so you can learn to get out of your own way and achieve breakthrough results in your business without all the drama. It's like a gym membership, but instead of working out your biceps, you're working out your brain and you are cultivating a mindset with confidence and building and implementing the systems your business needs from the start. To learn more and take advantage of an early bird offer, you can head on over to shediditherway.com/elevate. Again, it's shediditherway.com/elevate, ELEVATE. I can't wait to see you inside. This year's 4th annual She Did It Her Way Summit is taking place on October 24th, 2020, and early bird tickets are now on sale. This year's one-day virtual summit with a Friday evening kickoff is all about the journey from corporate cubicle to being your own boss and sharing that it doesn't have to be hard and overwhelming and complicated. We've sat down with hundreds of entrepreneurs to learn their journey and story all about how they started a business while working full-time, replaced their corporate income, and made their ultimate leap. This year's summit, we've simplified that process and we are bringing you the most relevant and important trainings during this one-day event. So friend, if you are listening to this and you have that business idea, you maybe even don't even have that business idea, but you are on the cusp of knowing that you want to work for yourself and become your own boss, and you are looking to 2021 to be your year, it is time. It is time to give yourself permission to take your very next best step and to sign up and attend this one-day epic event that is happening, and it's all virtual. You get access to all the replays if you can't make the trainings the day of, or even some of the trainings as well. We've made it super accessible, and I'm telling you that this is life changing. This will change your life if you let it. And I want you to be there. And I want this to be the pivotal point in your 2020 that when you look back, you're like, I'm so glad I did that. So you can head on over to shediditherwaysummit.com to learn more and to get your early bird ticket today. Welcome to the She Did It Her Way podcast, where it's all about making the ultimate leap from your 9 to 5 and building a business and life you love, all while doing it your way. I'm your host, Amanda Boleyn. Let's get started. Hello, She Did It Her Way listeners. Welcome back to another episode, a guest interview today. So excited that I am sitting down with Jess Glazer, who is a former celebrity personal trainer and elementary school teacher. Jess turned her once quote unquote cute side hustle into a $1 million business in 18 months. And since leaving her teaching job in 2017, she has hired a team of incredible heart-centered leaders, served hundreds of clients, helped create over $3 million in revenue for those clients in just under 2 years. And as a result of donation awareness, she and her husband are building a school in Ghana with pencils of promise. She's been featured in Forbes, Yahoo Finance, The Today Show, Good Day New York, The New York Post, Shape Magazine, Well and Good. Her mission is to cause a ripple effect and inspire change for generations to come, making a massive impact and leaving a lasting legacy beyond her singular actions. Jess, welcome to She Did It Her Way. It's so good to have you.
Amanda, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
well, such a beautiful intro.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you're a beautiful person. So I'm so excited to bring you on. And as I was sharing with you in the virtual green room, my listeners, they love hearing stories about how women made their leap from corporate America, built businesses. And so I'm just so excited to unpack all of these different facets and pieces of your journey. But in your own words, tell us what it is that you do today.
Sure. Okay. So in this very moment, August of 2020, I'm a business coach first and foremost, and I help people bring their businesses online, start their businesses and scale their businesses, everything from digital products to courses and, group programs, retreats, all the different things that they can do. And I work with clients from very beginning stages all the way up to 7 figures.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so let's dive into, you mentioned you were a teacher for so many years. Take us back to, that journey and deciding to make that transition from being a teacher to, the next phase and step in your life?
Sure. Yeah. So I think it actually started a little bit before teaching. I actually went to college for my doctorate of physical therapy, did undergrad in physical therapy. While I was in undergrad, my parents had encouraged me to get a teaching degree to, quote, fall back on. And so I had that teaching degree to fall back on, had no intention of ever using it. And when I was in my first year of grad school getting my doctorate, I actually dropped out. I had taken a leave of absence to work through a 10-year battle I had with an eating disorder, and I never went back. I then pivoted into the fashion industry, which was like a complete accident. Many of my decisions kind of have just organically happened. So I grew up in a family of artists and was always making my own clothing and accessories and leotards. I was a competitive gymnast growing up. And so I ended up kind of accidentally selling some of my accessories, which when I was dropping out of my doctorate program, it sparked this new energy of creativity. So I decided to pivot into the fashion industry, where I spent a year living on my brother's couch in Manhattan. And I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology for accessory design. And I thought that that was going to be my new path. And after a year in fashion, was very unhappy there. At the time, I thought I was a failure. I thought I was a quitter because it seemed like I just kept quitting and leaving things that I was kind of lining myself up to do. But in hindsight, really, I was just going through the process of growth and different stages and character traits that I needed to hone in on and skills that I needed to learn to get me where I am today. So from fashion, pivoted into the thing I was going to fall back on, right? And so I had applied for a teaching job, decided if I was going to, if I got the job, I would take it, but I wasn't super passionate about it. And so I applied to one school district. I got the job. And so then I spent 8 years working as an elementary school physical education and health teacher. And I had been a personal trainer since I was 17. I got certified on my 17th birthday.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
I had already been doing years and years of personal training. I'd already worked with a bunch of celebrities. And so the entire time I was a teacher, I was also working as a trainer and a group fitness instructor. And through my course of the 8 years as a teacher, I was just very unfulfilled. And entrepreneurship is not something that we have in our family. I come from a family of mostly doctors and lawyers. So I didn't even know it was a thing. And I didn't even know it was something I was interested in. But what I did know was I was very unfulfilled. And in my time that I had off, the space in between clients, after school, weekends, and summers, I kept building things. Like I just kept accidentally creating, whether it was an online fitness business, or I had created a company which was essentially monthly women's only fitness-based field trips. And we ran that for 4 years. I got into network marketing. I just always had my hands in other projects. And those other projects started to really fuel me and really give me the sense of fulfillment that I was looking for that I wasn't getting in teaching. And so when I finally decided to leave teaching, I didn't leave to jump and grow my wings on the way down, as people say. I wasn't brave. I didn't, people sometimes say things like, oh my gosh, you're so brave. You left a tenured teaching position with benefits and summers off. Like, wow, it's amazing. And that's not what happened. I also didn't leave because my side hustle was so big that I could leave. I left because I was so uncomfortable. I left because I was so unhappy and I was so unfulfilled that I just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah.
That is, so one thing that you had said that I think definitely needs some calling out is this. Sometimes we can feel like we're quitting when we're actually being brave enough to really figure out what it is that we want to do. And I think that's such an important reminder for all of us at any stage in life, because we've been marketed and prescribed that life is very linear, and it is not at all.
Yeah. It's so true. And I judged myself for so many years. And as a recovering perfectionist, I think it was something that I was battling with even while I was going through my eating disorder and kind of pivoting and finding my way in my early 20s, going from one thing to another. And now I look at it as like the most beautiful gift.
Yeah. And it's like learning to work through those changes and the actual underlying process that actually can help set us up for success later, because then we know how to navigate it. When you had said that you'd made the decision to leave teaching and go out on your own, not because of all these other things that you were doing were quote unquote deemed successful or in your eyes, but you left because you were uncomfortable, because you were unhappy. What was the emotional journey making that decision? I mean, were you thinking about it for a year before you made that decision and actually did it? Or what was that like?
So it really was the last 3 years, unfortunately. So for about 3 years, I was really struggling with wanting to leave, but then also wanting to stay in the comfortable, secure job. I also had a lot of fear around what other people would think, not so much friends, but like my parents, what would they think? My husband, who at the time I think was either my boyfriend or my fiance, and my students and their families. You know, how could I leave my students? Because for me, a phys ed teacher in an elementary school, I was the only phys ed teacher. And so I had the students in school from pre-K all the way through 5th grade. So I had such strong relationships with these children, 8 years that I was with them. And how could I leave them? How could I abandon them, right? And what would their parents think? And I just was so worried about what everybody else would think. And also I didn't have a really clear, like you said, linear plan moving forward. It was just, I don't want to do this, but I don't know what it's going to be. So there was a lot of emotional layers and baggage that I had to work through. 2 to 3 years of this kind of was lingering in the back of my mind. And I always thought, if I build these side things big enough, then I'll leave. Or when I hit a certain number, then I'll leave. What ended up happening was I was driving to work October 2016, listening to a podcast as I did every single day. Had my coffee, driving to work, listening to my podcast. And this one podcast, I love to share this story because it changed my life. And I wish I could remember whose it was. But
I was just going to ask you that.
I know. So I have to think back. If it was 2016, it was probably Lewis Howes or Tony Robbins. I listened to them quite a bit back then, still do. But the gentleman interviewing the woman, she was a teacher and she was making jewelry and selling it on Etsy. So right away, this really resonated with me. And she wanted to go full-time in her Etsy business, but was scared to leave teaching. And so he said, okay, if you gave yourself 1 year and you just tried to make it happen on Etsy, maybe you go on sabbatical or whatever, you give yourself 1 year to make it work. If it doesn't work, what's the worst case scenario? And she said, well, I probably would go back to teaching. I might have to go to a different district, but I've been a teacher for a decade. So yeah, I would just go back to teaching. And his response is what changed my life. He said, okay, so tell me, how does it feel to wake up every day and live in your worst case scenario?
Oh my gosh, I just got goosebumps.
Right? And so it hit me, and there is nothing wrong with teaching. It's an admirable job. I acknowledge every teacher out there. It just wasn't for me. And the funny thing is I am a teacher. That's what I do every day. But I pulled the car over. I immediately started hysterical crying. I texted my husband. I said, I can't do this anymore. That was October 2016. January 1, 2017, when we came back from our holiday break, I gave notice to my principal. And at that point, the remainder of the year was then giving notice to the Board of Ed and handling all of that and so on and so forth, rounding up our financials, making sure that we were going to be good to go. And we actually, that was my last year teaching. And then we actually left New Jersey and we moved to Manhattan spring of 2017. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. Cause I know that how does it feel to wake up in your worst case scenario every day definitely is probably hitting a lot of people listening to this. And maybe even they're pulling over in their car or stopping on their walk or wherever it's at that they're listening to as well. So you quit, you guys moved to Manhattan, did you take time off or did you get right to work? What was the first 30 days after you're like, wow, I actually am not, because then you're moving into summer. So it's kind of, everything's still fairly normal, I would imagine, but then it's not going back in the fall that you're like, wow, this is different.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had given myself a 30-day buffer, my husband as well, my parents, everyone was kind of like, take 30 days, go make friends, meet people, take classes in fitness, do whatever you need to do. But just the person that I am, the weekend that we moved into the city, I walked right into a gym and got a job immediately, started training clients. And my plan, because remember, I didn't really have a plan. My plan was do whatever I have to do to make ends meet. And I had to do a lot of internal work with my ego to say, you might have to do things that you feel are beneath you or things that you haven't had to do in a really long time. You might have to go back to waitressing or bartending. You might have to go back to, because at this point I was a trainer for 15 years and I had trained a lot of celebrities. So I might have to go back to what we call floor time, where you're like picking up weights and you're the new trainer on the floor versus the person who's getting paid hundreds of dollars per hour not doing those things. And so I really had to check myself and say, listen, if I have to work the front desk at, Target or Kohl's or be a barista, whatever it's going to be, I'm going to make ends meet. And there, again, is nothing wrong with those jobs. But coming from a place where I had 2.5 degrees and experience in different areas, I had to be okay with maybe not being okay for a little while. So got a job right away as a personal trainer, started hustling and grinding. Honestly, I was sliding into DMs from people on social media who lived in New York, who were in the fitness industry, that I thought I could become friends with, that I felt like we had things in common. And I was just left and right asking people, would you be open to going, like getting a coffee, or would you want to go take a class together, to complete strangers? The amount of no answers or no's that I got was far exceeded the amount of yeses I got, but no one was blatantly rude. And I'm so proud to say that some of my closest friends today actually were those people that I had initially reached out to. And I just started building relationships. Relationship capital is everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love that the piece where you're like, I just got a job. And I think the ego does that sometimes, where it's like, no, you're above this, you're above this. And what it does is it actually can bottleneck us. And in some instances, it's having that cash flow while you know that you are building a business and you're figuring it out is so, how do I say it? Like relieving. Yeah. Because then it's not one more thing that you have to think about in terms of, okay, well, how am I going to eat? How am I going to pay rent? And, and even just having that and freeing up your time so that you're not, overwhelmed. And I talk about getting a bridge job. So maybe you're listening, you're in a job that is taking up all your time and energy, and you're thinking, where am I even going to get the time and energy to work on a business? And sometimes it's taking a bridge job. And that was the case for me working at Target in retail for 60 hours a week on average. And it's like, how do you find the time or energy to go out and really explore? And then getting a bridge job, maybe you're not making as much, but pick up a job and do things that you normally wouldn't do. And I know it's some people, and I know I'm kind of dragging on here a little bit, but I think it's really important because we think that everything just falls into place, but it doesn't come without sacrifices and doing things that we normally wouldn't do. And I know people have come on the show and shared that they sold their house and downsized so that they didn't have, they cut their mortgage in half. And see, these are the things that sometimes are required. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would you, so then you started doing that, continue your journey as it like evolved. So this is in 2017, we're in 2020 now, and you built very successful businesses. So in 18 months, you were saying that you built $1 million business. So tell us how you did it, girlfriend.
So that whole first year that we were living here in the city, I was grinding as a personal trainer. I was very involved in the fitness industry here, very grateful to, work with all the magazines and be on TV, and had really great opportunity. I really thought at the time that I was going to be like the next Jillian Michaels, or if you're familiar with like Tone It Up or something. I thought I was going to have a fitness empire, and that's really what I was driving towards. And so if we reverse for 1 second, in 2013, I started emailing people workout plans and macros, and they were sending me checks in the mail, like actual snail mail checks. And so I really like to say that I started my online training business in 2013. And I tried everything from ebooks to paid Facebook groups. And so in 2017, in addition to training 12, 14 hours a day, I was also building my online fitness business. And I was able to take that online fitness business to some like substantial 6 figures, multiple 6 figures. It finally became what I thought it was going to become, kind of. And what ended up happening was November of 2018, so just a year later, a lot of my peers in the fitness industry started asking me how was I making money? What was I doing on the computer? What were those Zoom calls? How do I create a landing page? And so I am a teacher. I just started teaching my friends, and one friend turned into 2, 3, 4. And then all of a sudden, every Thursday at noon, we're sitting behind my laptop in the group fitness studio at the facility we worked at. And I said, I think I have to charge you guys. I think I have to start charging you guys. And so November 2018, I started the pivot into business coaching and business mentoring. I was still doing all of my health and fitness coaching, but what was interesting was, and this is so beautiful because you were just bringing this point up, it's kind of devil's advocate. So I sat down in 2018 with a coach mentor of mine, and he held up a mirror and he said, okay, I'm really proud of you. You quit your job and you're doing this thing, but are you actually doing this thing? Because it sounds like you replaced your teaching job with a training job. And while you're, yes, making ends meet and doing whatever you have to do, it sounds like you just replaced it with something that you're good at and that is easy. And you're working as much as you ever did before. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you're not going all in on your entrepreneurial journey yet. Like, you're just not. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. So
yeah, okay. That hurts, but truth.
Yeah, so true. So November 2018, started taking on business clients, dropped my in-person personal training down to 50%. By April 2019, completely stopped fitness altogether, shut down my online program, shut down my in-person program. At that point, I had like, one or two clients I would just trickle in every now and then, but shut down all the full-time training. And April 2019 went all in on business coaching, left everything else behind. And we've served just about 300 clients at this point. As of today, my clients have brought in more than $5 million in revenue for themselves.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We've created multiple 6-figure earners and 7-figure earners. And it's just wild. We have a team of 11 now. I mean, it's absolutely insane.
That's incredible and amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So when you started, 2 questions, how did you decide your coach starting out? And then 2, I would love to know the packaging. How did you know what offer to begin with when you shut down and pivoted from personal training to now business coaching?
Yeah, such good questions. So my first coach was geography. Ironically, we were in completely different states, but she was actually my fitness coach. I was doing bodybuilding competitions, and this was in 2015. She started helping a bunch of the girls. Ironically, the Tone It Up girls were on the same team as I was. She started helping a bunch of the girls kind of like work their businesses. So in 2015, she was my first business coach. I invested in her. I took a gap of time, I believe, until halfway through 2017. So from 2015 to 2017, 18, I did not have a coach. And then when I was looking for a coach in 2017, 18, I really was looking deeper into someone that was going to be really good at organic growth, marketing, social media, digital sales, and stuff like that. So got my feet wet just because it was like she already was my fitness coach and she offered a program. I said, oh, that sounds good. But then 2017, 18 was a little bit more strategic on who I was looking for, and have never not had a coach. I actually have 3 right now. I'm always with someone, and for different reasons. So whether it's, sales and marketing or strategy or more on the spiritual side or neuro-linguistic programming, like whatever it might be that I'm learning, there's always going to be someone to help me kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah. It's so important, I think, like, to have a coach. And for a handful of years, I didn't have a coach, and those were some of the most challenging years of my life. So get yourself a coach. And I love how you're strategically asking yourself, okay, what type of coach do I need in this moment to go to the next level? Like for some people listening, it might be, I just need someone who's going to help me get started and to take action. And I think for me, Selfish Blog, that is really where my sweet spot is, right? And some people might be like, I need a coach to help me undo and unlearn some things from a spiritual side, right? So taking inventory of who you need and then seeking those people out versus just, I need a coach, let me sign up with anyone.
Yeah. I think a really good question, if a really good question to ask yourself if you're listening right now and you're like, okay, but I don't know who I need.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? Like, one of the things that you can ask yourself is who is where I want to go, who has what I want, who built what I want, and who do I want to be emulating or just in the room with. I'm a very, very strong believer in getting in the room, getting a seat at the table. And I have no issue paying for that seat if that's what it's going to be, and just getting into the right room. So for me, my personal mentors right now, Chris Harder and his wife, Lori Harder, I've been working with them for years. Chris and Lori are very much, they've built what I want to build time over time. They act how I want to act. They hang out with who I want to hang out with. And there's no problem for me to say that. Like, I'm very open about that. And that's where I want to be. So I'm going to ask them for help.
Yeah. So good. Thank you for bringing that point up too. That's really important, especially deciding, okay, if I don't know where I want to be, start there. I love it.
Yeah.
So then how did you decide your packages and offerings, and have they changed since when you first started?
Yeah, very much so. When I was doing things either by myself in those years that I was without a coach, or at the very beginning, I started with what I was seeing a lot of. So it was a lot of ebooks, low ticket items, monthly, pay me and I'll give you your workouts. And even, like I said, paid Facebook groups. When I started working with a different coach in 2017, 18, the industry had shifted, and it had shifted into higher ticketed courses. And so I made the pivot into higher ticketed courses. So high ticket courses, typically, like a 12-week program, it might run anywhere from $1,200 up to $6,000 for industry standard kind of health and fitness. Those are normal numbers. And so when I made the pivot from the lower ticketed items to the higher ticketed items, I started to see a lot more success. I also really niched down, depending how you say it. I got really clear on just talking to one person and focusing on going deep rather than wide, and stopping trying to serve everybody, which we've all heard this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when it was time for me to come up with my offer, my health and fitness business was already offering high ticket health and fitness coaching. And so when I went over to business coaching, I just duplicated the same exact model, but within business. And so the way that we teach it in our company, it's kind of a reverse funnel. So think of an upside down triangle. And at the very top of the triangle, that's going to be your one-on-one clients, your high-level mastermind, where they're getting the most touch point with you, and it's the biggest investment. Underneath that, we live in group coaching, which is actually our signature program, Empower University, which is a 90-day business coaching program. That's where that lives, right? So it's a bigger group coaching program, still high ticket, pretty decent touch point with the coaches. Underneath that would be, if we pull a module out of Empower University and sell that by itself, evergreen, without live coaching aspect, that'll be like the next price point down. And then from there, underneath that would be, if you had like an ebook or just like a webinar, someone can buy one off, super low ticket. And then under that would be your anything free opt-in, right? No price point there. So we teach kind of the reverse funnel. And my belief is to really hone in on the top, really master it, tweak it, make it so good, make yourself known, make the brand known. And then from there, you can kind of start to expand out.
Mm-hmm. So good. That advice that you just shared is so valuable, and something that if you guys are thinking like just online business as a whole, that strategy is so important. And that's one thing that it took me, I don't know why it took me years to like figure that out, but once I figured it out, everything changed. Yeah. Everything changed. Even though I was listening to Pat Flynn and all those podcast episodes, I don't know, but some of that happens when you get a coach. So yeah, I love that. And I know, like, what would you say, like, are 3 specific actionable things you would recommend new business owners doing when they're first starting out?
Ooh, investing. Mm-hmm. I know you're like, eye roll. I'm not ready. I don't have the money. I can hear you eye rolling through the podcast, but like investing, even if it's a small amount, there's something about having skin in the game. People who pay attention, having a coach, having someone who's been there or done that, because it's so interesting. I had a client recently say, we just had a class graduate from Empower You, and they thanked me. They said, thank you for going first, which I chuckle inside because I'm like, going first? What are you talking about? Like, all of my mentors went before me, and before them it was, Tony Robbins and this one and that one. So I'm like, going first, that's such a crazy thing to say, but to them, I'm ahead of them. Right. And so you cannot put a price tag on having someone on your team, on your side to brainstorm with and bounce ideas off of, who is a couple steps ahead of you. Because what I see my clients do now in 6 months or a year took me 3 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's going to minimize the amount of time for you and hopefully help navigate through some challenges so that you don't have to go through all of them. So investing in yourself is going to be number 1. Number 2 is, I like to say, take messy action.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, just do it. I mean, Nike, they're spot on. Just do it.
Yep.
Messy action. It's never going to be perfect. You're always going to want to change it, especially if you're a creative down in your core. You're always going to want to make things better. You're constantly evolving. The amount of iterations of Empower University that we've had, the things that we've added, even down to like We didn't do welcome gifts at the beginning or birthday cards. We didn't have a workbook at the beginning. We didn't have formal surveys. So every single time we run the course, we make it better and better and better. And you have to be okay with that and really falling in love with the process, like they say.
Yeah.
And just do something. Like 80% done is better than 100% you waiting around for it to be perfect. So just take messy action. Just do it. We're sitting in a moment right now where Instagram Reels came out last week. Mm-hmm. And people are scared. People are scared to get on Reels. They don't know how to quote unquote do it right. And they don't know how to, make it pretty or whatever. So they're not getting on. My advice there is get on, because the algorithm right now is favoring people who are on. If you want to reach more people, if you want to expand your audience, get on Reels. That stuff is being pushed out to people. None of us know what we're doing. It's a new feature. So who cares, So you're splicing it together is a little bit off, or your music isn't perfect, or your words. The first reel I put up, my words that I put on the screen were actually cut off because I didn't realize that it would be cropped down to the thumbnail size of a normal feed post.
Oh, yeah. See, there you go.
But who cares?
Right.
And if I want to delete it or archive it, I can, or it's just not that big of a deal. It's a teachable moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So invest in yourself, take messy action. And the third one, do your own inner work.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, tell us more.
So it's so funny. The holes, the leaks, and the gaps that I see in businesses are reflections, and this is mine as well. They're just reflections of the holes, the leaks, and the gaps that you have going on internally. And I laugh when I call them students, when clients come in to my programs, because they come in and they're excited. They think we're going to start building a business, which we do. But what you really need to do is work on all of the stuff inside. And I think there's a lot of resistance here from people sometimes if they think this is too woo-woo or spiritual, or I'm not into that, or I've tried meditating and it doesn't work, or I don't have the time. If you say that, then you need it more than anyone, right? So doing the work, turning inside, asking yourself deep questions, working on childhood wounds, old money mindset patterns that were passed down from down generations, right? Doing the work, reading books, getting uncomfortable, practicing meditation, journaling. I mean, these are not things to check off your to-do list. These are things that will change your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. Cause it's really I think once recognizing that it's who you're being is what you're attracting, and how you're behaving is really what takes you to the next level. And even the bracelets of what would Jesus do, right? What would a full-time 6-figure business earner do? What would she think? How does she think? And then how do we operate from that place versus doing the same thing we're doing today, because that's just going to keep us exactly where we're at.
Yeah. I got really deep into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work.
So good.
Yeah, recently. And he talks about exactly that. He's like, if you're living in the past, then you're only going to create the past moving forward. Right. And so you have to create that. What would the future self of me do or say? And we have a mindset coach in Empower, shout out to Nick, because this is his quote, but he said, your to-do list is your to-be list.
Yep.
To your point, right? How are you being? That's the only thing that you have to do.
Yes. Yeah. It's such a good book too. The Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is a phenomenal book too. So if you guys are listening, definitely check that one out. I love it. So what would you talk to us about failure, right? Failure is such this big glaring thing that keeps a lot of us from taking action. How would you say, a failure that you thought was this massive failure at one time in your life that meant everything and crushed you, that later set you up for success?
I think for me, going through multiple failures like anybody, I started to learn to love what was on the other side. So the biggest failure that I can think about where this started to change in my mindset, because I had a ton of failures as a kid. I mean, even learning how to ride a bike, right? You constantly fail. When after 10 years struggling with an eating disorder and addiction to diet pills and laxatives and fat burners and all of those wonderful things, when I I had multiple interventions in college with my roommates. Nothing worked. And I got to a point similarly, like I did with teaching, where I just couldn't do it anymore. I was so sick and tired of that life and that pattern and myself. I actually checked myself into an outpatient program. And at the time, I thought I failed because it was like I was quitting on my eating disorder and I wasn't strong enough. This is what I thought. I wasn't strong enough anymore to keep doing it because it took a lot of discipline. And that failure saved my life. And it was at that moment that I started to kind of awaken to two things. One would be failure, and two would be asking for help. Because I'm a recovering perfectionist, I've never asked for help in my life, right?
Yeah.
So when I started to see, okay, that saved my life, and then I did it again and again and again, and then it was the changing industries and the dropping out of school, the doctorate program, and then the quitting the 9-to-5 job that was safe and secure. I started to become obsessed with or addicted to asking for help and failing. Because every time I fail, I learn something. And what's interesting is most often for me, the lessons are, okay, I didn't like that. Or like, okay, that didn't work. So what's the big deal? Isn't that what you want? You want to learn about what you like and you want to learn about the direction you want to go in. So where I am now, it's taken well over a decade to get here, probably closer to 2 decades, but I am actually like obsessed with asking for help, delegating, and failing. And I'm in a point right now in my business where we very much have been doing the same thing for the last 2 years, which I'm extremely grateful for. And to go back to like the offers before, I have 1 or 2 other things, but like we have our bread and butter, and that's the only thing that I ever talk about. That's the only thing that we offer. And it's become a machine, which is great.
Yeah.
But I'm so ready to fail right now. Like I'm so excited for a challenge.
Do you have an idea of what that challenge is, or is that still kind of brewing, kind of leaving yourself open to it to present itself to you?
Oh no, we're working on it right now. And
okay, we'll be watching. That's for sure. I'm like, what's happening there? I love that. Yeah, and it is. If we change the way that we look at failure, then we can change, how we approach it and look at it from an experimental standpoint of, I don't really know if this is going to work, but let's try it. And at least I know if it doesn't work, at least I now know that I don't like it, or I know that I do love this. And I do know that this is the path, but we just don't know. And I think that's the one thing, and including myself too, at the early stages of building a business, is we feel like nothing's working in the beginning, and we're like, nothing's working. And it can get us into this loop of this mindset of everything's a failure, nothing's working. And it's like, yeah, but that is the work of learning to work through that. And it's almost a rite of passage. So we can stop resisting it and start being like, okay, this is really uncomfortable. Like, it's just part of the process. Like, keep moving, keep going.
I love how you said experiment, because it makes it fun. It makes it sound like play. So if we can go back to childhood for a second, and if you grew up with stairs in your house, like, come on, who here tried to slide down the stairs on their butt and it didn't really work? And then you take a sheet and that still doesn't really work. And then so you take like a bigger pillow and maybe that doesn't work. And you keep experimenting, you keep playing with things until you find like, I don't know, a boogie board. You take that, it definitely works, but you crash into the wall and you're like, that's a bad idea, right?
Yeah. So put the pillows at the bottom of the staircase.
Exactly. You're just experimenting, and you probably got in trouble, and that's why you're afraid of failing.
Yeah, exactly. Like you broke an arm or something. But yeah, that's a really great point. That's so good. That's a good memory associate or visual association with that. So, this has been amazing, Jess. Thank you so much. Let's go. I want to go into rapid fire round. So what is one of your favorite all-time books that you've read? And it could be a nonfiction, or it could be a fiction.
So I'm obsessed with reading. I do about 3-4 a month. Whoa. There's one book that I read every single year.
Yeah.
So I will give you that one. And we read it every year, my husband and I, for the start of the new year. Secrets of a Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker.
Ah, yes. Can you say that one more time?
Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. And it's by T. Harv Eker. It's one of those like old classics. It's great for money mindset work, but I have a list of all of my favorite books that I've read, categorized, written out, along with a speed reading training that I would love to gift your audience.
Yeah. Tell them how they gift it. How do we gift it?
So you can go to jessglazer.com/reading vault.
Amazing. I love it. Yes. I'm going to go over and visit. I love catching new books. Success of a Millionaire Mind was something I think I like picked it up years ago when I was 23, but sometimes I do believe that books find you at the right time. And when I read it, it wasn't the right time. So you've inspired me to now even revisit. Have you read Busting Loose from the Money Game?
Oh, I have not.
That is also, don't judge. Well, you know how we're not supposed to judge a book by its cover. Don't judge it by its cover. The cover is like crazy, but that is also, I feel like it's probably going to be one similar to The Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, but it talks all about, it's very, I would say woo-woo, but people who have been introduced to it and have read it are like, this is amazing. And awesome. Yeah, it's a good book. Okay. What's the best $100 or less purchase one can make in their business?
$100 or less. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think what is less than $100 for me right now. I guess a book. Mm-hmm. I love books. I think you can learn so much, shorten the path.
Yeah. What is something that's a non-negotiable in your life?
My morning routine, for sure.
Ooh, tell us a little bit about what's in it.
Yeah. So I like to think of it as just like 20, 20, 20, 20. Mm-hmm. In the easiest capacity, mine is usually more like 30 or 40 minutes. So it takes about 2 to 3 hours for me. Didn't start there, but to break it down simply, movement is the first thing to get all of the juices kind of flowing. And then the second thing is going to be meditation. The third is journaling. And the fourth is reading.
So good. Such like a morning routine to look up to and build in and do all that. And I think too, like what you're saying too, it didn't start that way, right? So even if you took 5 minutes of movement, 5 minutes of journaling and all those things, just to even start to practice is such a great place to start as well. Where can my listeners connect with you and find out more information about you and what you've got going on?
Sure. So best place to connect would be Instagram. I'm at jess.glazer, Glazer. Slide into my DM, say hi, please. I love chatting with people. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was today. And my website, jessglazer.com, has all the information on there as well.
Amazing. Well, Jess, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure and such an honor. Thank you so much for your time and energy. And I'm so excited for my listeners to be able to tune in.
Amanda, thank you so much.
If you enjoyed today's podcast episode, you can head on over to shediditherwaypodcast.com where you can access the entire vault of She Did It Her Way podcast episodes and more information all about how to make the ultimate leap from your 9 to 5. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I would be so grateful if you headed on over to iTunes and left a review letting me know what you love about the She Did It Her Way podcast. Until next time, keep doing it your way.